back, and special guest today. We are very grateful to be granted some time with the Jet CEO, Tain Drinkwater. Tain, welcome to the Jetstream for the first time, and hopefully not for the last time.
Well, thank you for the invitation. The start of a new year started strong, so I'm really happy to be a part of the conversation.
So you moved back to the Hunter after a long time away with administrator and executive roles with other organisations. First off, how are you enjoying being back home?
I love being back home. It's a refreshing change, certainly from Sydney. Being in a bit of a rat race in Sydney and working sort of kind of across different industries down there. But more than happy to be back living amongst friends and family, and certainly the Newcastle lifestyle is one that really resonates with myself and my family, so it's really, really nice to be home.
Having moved away from Sydney and just before COVID, I do appreciate that as well. What's changed since you've been away? Are you back around the same area you grew up? Are you living somewhere different? Or what have you noticed the change in the 20 or so years since you moved away and came back?
Well, it has certainly changed. Although I have moved to close to where we were living 20 years ago. So my parents are literally just around the corner at Kerry Bay. My sister is
That's
also...
a good or a bad thing?
It's actually a great thing, although I do forget that they're there. So, I've got two boys who are now 14 and 11 who have never lived near family, and so it's really lovely to have family so close. And I've got sisters in Blacksmiths and then in town also, and so it's been really lovely just to spend time within the community, and obviously there's been a hell of a lot of change in Newcastle over the last 20 years. I think I was saying to someone the other day, I just could never have imagined there'd be global organisations that now have got their headquarters in Sydney, and with the expansion and the investment in infrastructure and certainly in the defence area and up in the airport, there is just so much opportunity for young people and for families now. And so when I moved away 20 years ago, it was because I wanted to have a career. Now I guess what I see is there's no need to move away because there's a lot on offer here, and there's a lot of great connection and just a really good community feel to Newcastle, and that certainly hasn't changed.
I've got to say you structured it the right way, moving slightly further away from Toronto than your parents, so they're not driving past your house all the time. I fell into that trap. So yeah.
Well, we live in a cul-de-sac, so there's one way in and one way out.
Do you have any favourite places you've returned to? Have you found any new spots you'd probably class as a favourite? That could be restaurants, coffee, places to visit.
So we recently discovered 8 at Trinity. I quite like that. So we take the boat down there, and that's a nice afternoon of some cocktails and food. We've also got an awesome Japanese restaurant at Mizumi in Toronto Main Street.
So I go the alternative Umi.
Umi and Mizumi. So Umi I know is open on a Sunday. So no, we're pretty much keeping it local, to be honest. We also obviously spend a lot of time in town here, so we like to go to the Prince, particularly after a game, and obviously Modus are a huge partner of the Jets, and so I'm always over there supporting them, and that's what my justification is to my husband. I'm there to support Modus, and obviously in and around town there's some really lovely spots around Honeysuckle which did not exist before we left, so I think we're a bit spoilt for choice at the moment.
We certainly are. Well, that pretty much covers most of the local stuff. So getting into the Jet side of things, how have you found your first 9 months or so in charge?
It's been extremely rewarding, right? For the first time in 17 years, we've come home with some silverware. So I feel like, we've got a really good structure, systems, and people in place to deliver where we want to get to. Look, it's not been without its challenges, and I don't think any of us can underestimate, the challenges within the A-League and some of the resources that are associated with that, and the support from the A-League that's provided to the clubs, and that obviously changed significantly during COVID. So we're really about trying to rebuild and get the club to financial sustainability, and that's not about making a profit, because everything we do we put back into the community, but it is about building a sustainable pipeline of funding, so that we're here for the long time.
Can I ask a quick one, just to follow on a couple of points? So obviously we managed to win the Australia Cup at the start of the year and then qualify for ACL2 later on. And you've sort of mentioned obviously the cutbacks with A-League funding, etc. How's the club, I guess, positioned for that venture into Asia, with additional budgets and travel expenses and things? Is that something that you're addressing right now, or is it still mainly focused on this year and the squad? And
I think we're certainly focused on right now, but with an eye to the future. So, yes, it comes with additional costs, but there is also additional opportunity for us. So, it's really important for us right now to be thinking about who we might want to partner with as part of that adventure into Asia, and it opens up, a global market for any potential partner. And so we see it as a really exciting and new revenue stream for us. And yes, it's certainly significant investment, but also the significant upside, which I think from our perspective opens up a whole new range of opportunities for the club. And it's not only sort of one and done and we go over there and we play and we're out. It's about how do we develop a sustainable and connected fan network and engagement opportunities. It might not be necessarily in the traditional areas, but it might be how do we get people connected to the club for the longer term, because they see us as a community club that really wants to give back to the areas in which it operates.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice little extra headache or extra job that was put on your plate right at the start of your tenure anyway.
Yes, that is correct. And I'm certainly on a steep learning curve. But I think if you ask the majority of the A-League clubs who have participated, it is a lot of work, but it's also so much opportunity. And it's something that, we could never have imagined that we'd be in this position. And so just really excited that we're able to have the opportunity.
Absolutely. Now, when you're casting your mind back to when you first came on board, did you have a list of immediate priorities that you had, and have you been able to accomplish everything that you had on your to-do list to tackle immediately? And also, are there any opportunities, maybe structurally or culturally, that you've seen from your prior experience with other organisations that you think maybe would do well here at the Jets or even in this sport?
Yep. I think for me, I didn't really have a set plan. I didn't have a set 100-day plan. My view was really spending the first 3 or 4 months listening. And so not only listening to the staff within the organisation and obviously our ownership group and their strategic priorities, but really getting out and spending time in the community and doing it in a way that's authentic, so not always fronting up in front of the media. It's about, actually just getting in behind the scenes and turning up and doing what we say we're going to do. And so that was probably one of my first ethos, and certainly with our staff and with the broader club, it was very much we're just going to get back to basics. So we're going to do what we say we're going to do. We're going to show up. We're going to be authentic. We're going to be consistent. And then the rest will follow. And so with that sort of, underlying principle in place and certainly with the backing of the ownership group, that was ultimately where we wanted to head. So we've spent sort of the first 3 or 4 months just doing that listening, and me obviously working with the ownership group who have been super supportive around, the strategic direction of the club. We're on lockstep and we all know where we want to head, and that is really about putting people first, and that's really our community first, and not only community in the traditional football community, but obviously in the broader region. And that includes our staff and our players and everybody who's associated with the club. And then really focusing on team success. So making sure we've got the right structures and support network around the football department. And I know that there was always sort of chat around, our medical standards and what did or did not exist. And so it's really been making sure that we're providing Mark and Stephen with the right resources, and it's resources that are fit for purpose, right? Like we're not a multi-million-dollar club, where we are a club that's really very much focused on developing pathways and investing in local talent. So that team success is very much about certainly the first teams, but also around investing in our academy. So we've expanded our academy, and you'll have seen now we do the pre-academy, which is 9 to 12-year-old. So it's very much football focused in that sort of team success element. And then our third pillar is really around business performance, and that's about financial sustainability. So one of my major priorities was obviously really developing and enhancing some of our commercial partnerships. And, you've seen we've expanded our major partners this year. We've got New Balance on board, which is just a beautiful kit to wear and everyone wants to buy it, which is great. We're very grateful for that.
There'll be a question about that later.
Yeah, excellent. Well, hopefully it's a positive one.
Yep.
But, so we've got New Balance on board. We've got Oz Shipping Containers, who are a great local business who are thinking globally. They're based in Terralba. We've got Cardiff Motor Group, who continue to be on board, Greater Bank, Emerald Horizon, who are our new men's major partner, NIB for the first time ever investing in women's front of jersey, University of Newcastle. So we've got all of our major partners who have committed for the longer term. I mean, having Greater Bank on board for the 11th year is phenomenal. So that really is that building that financial sustainability, and we have to do that in a way that's really responsible.
Has there been, obviously the Jets have gone through multiple ownerships and struggles throughout the years, and some businesses have been burned from previous administrations. Has there been an effort to get those sort of people back on board, or even just contact to say, hey, this is, we're a long-term prospect? If you've been thinking about becoming back involved with the Jets, is that any sort of contact with former people in the business community that maybe you've been? I mean, it's also not a non-issue with regards to supporters as well. I think quite a few people, when Maverick came on board, are taking a wait-and-see approach just to see how things develop. Have you sort of maybe seen that as a bit of a prevailing sentiment around not just the business community but supporters as well?
Yeah, absolutely. But we've tried to be very deliberate, and certainly I've tried to be quite deliberate around spending time with some of those past, whether they're businesses or whether they're fans and people connected to the club, but also allowing that to happen organically, because you do what you say you're going to do and people will judge you by your actions.
Yep.
And that's always the way I've played. And so I've got a very strong commitment to making sure that whatever we do say, we actually do. And, we've certainly found that we've got people coming back to the club. So we've got a lot of new organisations, but also a lot of organisations who were part of the club previously who are now seeing a different way of doing things, and who are seeing the commitment by our ownership group that they're here for the long term. They've gone into the club with their eyes wide open. I mean, Morris Bassetto is certainly well versed in everything football, and I like to leave that to Morris because that is his expertise, along with obviously running a club, which is certainly a strength of his. Certainly his focus on football is really important, and so from getting people back to the club, it has been a wait-and-see approach, but we're getting close to 9,000 members this year. I really want people to turn up this weekend. If we can get to 10,000, I know we can because it's happened before. Yeah. It's just people wanting to see some authentic and some consistent football, and I think they're starting to see that both from our men's and our women's, and it might have taken a little while this season for it all to click, and it's not going to say that it's not going to take some hits in future, but I think the fundamental elements are there. You're seeing it on the pitch consistently week in and week out, and that's just leadership from both of our head coaches.
So obviously in the previous iteration there's been office numbers cut, a lot of people behind the scenes. Basically the office was cut to the bone as sort of a cost saving measure before Maverick came in. We asked Morris a couple of times about bringing more people on board, and that's obviously happened with Ken and with Ben Hawes and some people in the office. Are we back to where we think is probably optimum staffing levels, not just obviously in the office, but also as part of the coaching team in your eyes, or have we still got some more opportunities to maybe put some more people in the office or help out in the coaching side of things?
I think any investment we're making within the business is really focused on a growth mindset. So where roles add value, and whether it's adding value commercially or whether it's performance on the pitch, like what's going to make the bus go faster. And so again, our ownership group have been very clear, and that's certainly my remit to our staff, which is it's not about cutting costs. It's about increasing revenue in a way that is sustainable. And so there probably might be one or two roles that, you know, I'd like to look at and bring into the business. And that's more, again, how do we get from, you know, here to the next level? And you know, it's not going to be doing what we've always done because it hasn't delivered, you know, what we wanted. So I think there's an appetite there from Maverick Sports Partners to invest in a couple of more resources, and I think they've been very supportive of me when I've suggested that. I think there's a lot of work we can be doing just within our community to even activate more, right? Like, so we've got a great community department, but, you know, they're quite light on. So I'd love to be able to run more community clinics. I'd love to be more broader than the Newcastle and Maitland region, you know, so if we could take things out more broadly to the Northern New South Wales region, that'd be great. That's why the partnership with Northern New South Wales is so important. They've got a lot of resources and they can help activate, and we've got the brand, so there is that connection. But ultimately, you know, the business is in a position where we can't grow exponentially, and we shouldn't grow exponentially. We will always be fit for purpose, and we'll also always be challenging the status quo and making sure we're thinking about, well, what's the next thing on the horizon? What technology can we use? What can we use to unlock more resources internally? So that's probably where our focus is.
Yeah, and I mean, you sort of touched on it before as far as, you know, memberships and whatnot, and obviously, you know, you're trying to spend the available funds to get the best value for money and fit the purpose. So, you know, if all of a sudden there were another 5,000 members, you know, then you may have that budget to then go and put these extra, you know, couple of community engagement officers or whatever else is required. So, yeah, I mean, from a fan's perspective, I don't think we can necessarily just expect Maverick to go out and fund all of this. We need to show that there's the actual desire, or the product is going to be accepted. So I think you know, come Friday night, it'll be you know, one of the first real big opportunities for Newcastle, I think, to show that they've, you know, re-engaged with the team. You know, can I just ask a quick one just on the academy? You've sort of said it was a you know, a bit of a focus here at the moment, and it just, I guess, triggered a memory of the amount of, you know, players and academy products that we've lost in recent years to down to the Central Coast. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with the troubles that they're going through at the moment, and I know their academy teams aren't even playing right now.
I think they've shuttered it for the moment while the APL's got it.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that an opportunity that you guys are potentially exploring to try and get some of those? I mean, Central Coast have traditionally had a really, really strong academy. You've only got to look at the number of graduates that have gone on to A-League and overseas. Do the current staff levels allow, you know, someone to be, you know, maybe looking at some of those younger kids that aren't getting a game and trying to entice them up here to do the reverse mirages?
Look, I don't think it has been, well, I'll say it hasn't been a focus because, you know, we're really clear in, you know, we have a lot of homegrown talent here who have invested a lot of time and energy within the region, and so we'd like to, if they're capable, then we'd like to be able to invest in them. And I think you've seen, even with our scholarship holders this year, we've got, you know, a lot of local grown talent, but also we're not afraid to bring people in when we need to bring people in, but it'll be done sort of in a really sustainable way. I think, you know, when Western United had their troubles earlier, there was, you know, questions about whether we would pick up players from there. At the moment, it's not really a focus of ours. If we see good talent anywhere, we'll always look at it, but ultimately, you know, our roster's set for the time being, so we'll keep it tight.
Yeah, fair enough.
Even with the season-ending injuries for 3 players, we're still not looking to bring anybody else in?
Oh, look, I think Mark is always on the lookout for opportunities, and certainly, you know, he's got my support and the support of the ownership group where we identify talent that we might need to invest in. You know, we've definitely done that, and we increased our scholars this year as a direct reflection of that, because we want to be able to develop, you know, those longer-term players who stay with the club, you know, for the majority of their career. But also we've got a really clear view that we want kids waking up in Muswellbrook who might want to play for Chelsea, but they know they've got to play in Muswellbrook, and then they're going to come to the Jets Academy. We're going to look after them here in the A team for a period of time until they're ready to go, but then we're also going to help them get to where we want them to go. So we want to be a club where, it's certainly a destination, and it's not a destination to check out of. It's a destination because it's a great club to be at. You're going to get looked after. You've got great coaching staff, a really strong administration behind you. You're going to get paid, and you're going to play some pretty cool football.
And if nothing else, if they don't go overseas, they'll just end up at Wanderers in 5 years. So, like most of our ex-players and coaches even. So to clarify the club structure as it exists currently, you're in charge of club operations, and under you is General Manager of Football Ken Shembry and General Manager of Commercial, Digital and Marketing Ben Hawes.
No, that's changed now.
That's changed now?
Yes. So we have made some changes. So currently, my job is to look after the whole of club, and so that's football, commercial, and the administration side of things. So we've now got Nigel Bugard, who is our General Manager of Football, and he's in a permanent capacity.
Yep.
So Nigel is across both our men's and women's team plus our academy, and so really delighted to have Nigel on board because he's certainly a legend of the club. He takes no prisoners, which I really love. He's doing some great work.
We've seen the same as
it's like that in the office too. And when
you got a red card in your pocket.
Yeah, I've been schooled in the red cards, and when I had him and Jason Hoffman sitting across from each other, there was a lot of banter and not a lot of work at times.
Yep.
So Nigel's doing a great job around our academy structure and really applying the principles that I guess we're working towards around our own club DNA, and so making sure that from the first teams down, the way that we coach, the way that we treat people is consistent across the organisation. So we've got Nigel as a GM of football. We had Jason Hoffman, who was our head of commercial. So Jason's just taken an opportunity to join the NGM group. So they've identified him as a key talent and who's got great connections across Newcastle, which is a loss for the club. Obviously, he's an icon of the club, and he's not lost to us. He'll still be a part of the family, and I'll continue to use him as a bit of an ambassador for us, which makes sure he's connected to the club. So we're looking for somebody to be our head of commercial, but we have a general manager of community and consumer, and so that's all ticketing, merchandise, and everything sort of retail. And then we have a chief operating officer, so Nikki, who really heads up the operations side of things. So we've got a decent structure, and obviously then both head coaches report through to me, but Nigel has sort of kind of day-to-day operational responsibility.
Well, that answers the Jason Hoffman question that was posted on Facebook. So that's preempted an answer there. Okay, so we sort of went into that basically because it's and you sort of alluded to it in your previous answers with regards to somebody being very front of media. And that I think a lot of people in the Hunter Valley would probably got comfortable with when Laurie was in charge and being very front and centre, not just in media but on social media, and being a very available and public point of contact. So it's a definite, I'm just clarifying, it's a definite strategy from the club and from Maverick to have the main sort of face of the club now being the coaching staff, or the head coach of the men's and the women's, and the office staff working in the background and not being so front of mind and front of house, so to speak.
I don't know that it's been a deliberate strategy, and I think it's probably, something that I haven't been entirely focused on. It's certainly been working in the background and restoring relationships and acknowledging the historical sort of challenges that the club has had. And so I think in my mind it was very much, do the work and then you can come out more publicly and sort of then hang your hat on things. And that's probably just my style, and probably the same as Maverick Sports Partners, to be honest. But it's certainly not been a deliberate strategy. But in saying that, people want to hear from our coaches, right? Like they don't want to hear necessarily from the administrators, and there'll be times when I need to get out front and centre and take a position, but also, people really love our football, and so I really want to give the opportunities to our coaches to be out there front and centre and talking to our fans, because they're ultimately the ones, and to your point, Matt, that we want them coming to games and we want them to feel connected to the club, and the only way they do that is by hearing from the head coaches, in my view. But I'm also happy to stand corrected, and if people want to see my face more often, they can, but it's certainly not, it's not deliberate, but it's also, I'm also not one to always be front and centre.
No, that's fair. Like there's different management styles.
And maybe also comes from the NRL too, because, obviously Peter and Andrew were always the ones that were...
You don't have a... 5-year plan to maybe run for mayor or something?
No, I definitely don't. I think our public officials do a great job, and I don't know that I could do that myself. And I should also clarify, I do have administrator rights on our social media. I just choose not to. I use it wisely, and so sometimes you'll be getting a response from the Jets administrator and it's me, but it's under that name rather than my personal account.
Now, we did have late last year reported some issues with Venue New South Wales with the hiring arrangements around McDonald Jones. I'm assuming that's all been resolved in the meantime, because we haven't had any sort of updates about that in the media, that has all been sorted out behind the scenes.
Look, it's been sorted out insofar as we paid a security deposit, which was part of the commercial agreement. But there's still a lot of work we need to do, with all of our providers insofar as making sure that, we get a fair opportunity to host matches and deliver a return to our fans. So we're obviously extremely limited in where we can play, and so we'd love to have more of a partnership with Venues New South Wales, and that partnership being a true partnership, 50-50 upside, 50-50 downside. We are an asset for this community, and I think sometimes that is forgotten. We don't make a profit. We have a cash burn, and so every dollar is either our ownership group or our commercial partners that are going into the operational running of the club. So if we can take costs out, and if we can try and leverage that relationship with Venues New South Wales to really get a better deal for the club, and again, it's not for our ownership group, it's not for us to make a profit, it is actually just to survive. And the current arrangement, has us against the wall, and we lose a lot of money every year. I mean, we pay Venues New South Wales $1 million a year to play at that facility, and we lose about 40 grand every home game. So it is crucial for us to get our fans there. So, minimum that we need is that 4,000 ticketed members, plus our membership. So for us to sort of even break even, we need people at the game. And so, today was probably a really great opportunity for me to reach out to our fans and to our members and say, come along to the game, because, we ride on you, and we certainly acknowledge the investment that our fans and our members are making to the club, and it makes a huge difference to the club. And so we want to be successful, and we want our fans and our members to come along with us.
Is there a long-term plan or vision maybe to look at venues other than McDonald Jones Stadium that might be more boutique along the lines of a Coopers? It obviously would require investment in infrastructure and not building a new facility. Obviously, there's been talk over decades of redeveloping number 2. I think there's sort of constraints around the size of the land or something. But surely, if the appetite was there and the right lobbying was done, there might be some opportunity for government grants to maybe redevelop something. Obviously, Maitland's too small. It's good for boutique like Australia Cup games and pre-season fixtures and all that, but wouldn't really be a viable alternative for regular season's game. But so, I mean, something along the lines of a Cooper Stadium, about a 15 to 20,000 sort of capacity would probably be the sweet spot, and quite a few of the sweet spots for clubs across the league, I think, is probably like, Brisbane plays in a stadium that's way too big for their fan base, and they're just unfortunately hamstrung by having to go to Redcliffe to something that's a bit smaller. But there been any conversations or thoughts about that as sort of a long-term thought?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've had a lot of active discussions, obviously with Newcastle, with Maitland, and we've met sort of with both mayors up there who would love to have us there, but it is absolutely going to require investment from all levels of government. Maitland could easily be upgraded to a 12 to 15,000 seat stadium, and I know there was initial work done a number of years ago around what the planning of that might look like, and the same with number 2. That is certainly, whilst it's hamstrung in terms of the land size, I think it'd be a beautiful spot to have grandstands on either side, and you've still got a hill at each end. Same with Maitland. So I think they're both real live possibilities, but it will require investment from all levels of government. I think there is certainly a desire from some levels of government to invest in boutique infrastructure, but our position is very much, we know it's not going to be built necessarily for us. However, we are the elite team, so we would, we expect to, have an opportunity to participate and play in it as the elite team, but it has to be multi-purpose, right? Where are the opportunities to partner with other sports? And we know that that's a real life conversation across a lot of sports at the moment. And you're right, Suncorp Stadium is way too big, Allianz Stadium is way too big, we are all a bit landlocked at the moment, and we don't have a lot of resources, and the sport doesn't have a lot of resources.
And trying to get money spent in the Hunter from state governments is
a little difficult to say the least. We need to get everyone to start voting for the other side, get us to become a bit more of a swing electorate, and we might actually see a bit of attention from Parliament, but until that happens.
That can be a double-edged sword. What about plans for Jets HQ? I know we're sort of spread out all over the place with Academy here and women's team in Glendale and number 2 and the men's in Maitland. And is there plans to try and find somewhere that will be able to have everything, like office, players and everybody all under the one roof and one facility? Or is that something that's probably, again, that's going to be a long-term thing, but is that also something that's been discussed?
Yeah, look, it is certainly up for discussion. Ultimately, we would love to have everybody housed in the one area, because when you talk about culture and you're trying to build a club that's really connected, at the moment we are, but it's forced because we all drive up to Maitland and we'll have an exec team meeting up there, or we'll go and watch training at the Hunter Sports Centre. So we're very grateful of where we are at the moment, but ultimately, we're spread far and wide.
Yep.
So absolutely, we've got sort of intentions to bring us all together at some stage into the future. I mean, our academy is working very well out here in northern New South Wales, and the support that they give our academy teams has been tremendous. But if we could have some fit for purpose facilities, and again, it doesn't need to be a centre of excellence, but it certainly needs to be something that is fit for purpose and somewhere that's reflective of an elite sporting team, is definitely our aim.
So we've touched on it before, the New Balance deal, new apparel partner. How's everything been going with them? How are the merch numbers and sales looking?
Sales are looking fantastic. Of course, I encourage everybody to continue to go out and purchase merchandise. But look, it's the first year we've ever had it in-house, right? And so it's going very well. I think we've got a beautiful kit. Our home and away jerseys are lovely. Our third kit has hit really well. It's very reflective of our Newcastle ethos and society, and so people have really got behind that. So look, merchandise can always be better, but from a first year bringing it in-house, it's actually performing really well. And our relationship with New Balance is really strong, and they've been wonderful advocates of the club. I think the quality of the garments that they produce are second to none. And so I just spent a couple of days down at the Australian Open. I was really proud proud that, they also partner obviously with the Australian Open, with global sporting teams, and, we're the Newcastle Jets, and we're a really core part of their business, and they treat us that way, so it's been really lovely.
How does the partnership work with, I think it's Belgrave, the actual representative,
Yes.
so it's not with New Balance direct. How does that partnership work?
So we've got a partnership with Belgravia, who are
close.
yes, very close, and they're based in Adelaide and / Melbourne. So we've got a very close relationship with Belgravia, and they've been great proponents. They obviously do some work with other Australian sporting organisations, but it was a real leap of faith for them to actually get on board with another A-League club. And so it's not without its teething issues, that's for sure, but we all know where we want to get to, and I think there's a collective desire that we know we need to invest in the Jets and giving our fans a really quality product for them to be able to buy into.
So sort of related to that, so no RAF round or jersey this season? That's been...
Currently in discussions about RAF round. So we would definitely have an Anzac round. So we're obviously playing on the 25th of April. So it's really important for us, and it would be great for us to retain that spot. So we're trying to get some tentpole moments where our fans every year can expect us to be playing at exact times. And that's really one of them for us that we want to go after. So whether we can meet sort of deadlines on jersey designs, it's going to be tight.
Yeah.
But stay tuned in the next couple of days. In the next week, we probably should have a bit more of a decision on that.
Any thoughts on a fan design jersey competition every couple of seasons? Just sort of take maybe the work off some overworked designer somewhere down in Melbourne or Adelaide to maybe come up with not even just the first kit, but like maybe the third kit, or something along the lines of coming up with a fan design RAF commemorative jersey or some sort of commemorative jersey.
Yeah, look, I would never say never. I think we certainly don't necessarily leave it up to someone in Melbourne to do our jersey design. We're heavily invested in it up here because we know what our fans want and like. But I'm happy to put that one down as a concept to work through further.
Well, just on that, knowing what our fans want and like, and knowing now that you've got the administrative privileges for the Jet Social, it's been something that's been spoken about, but the logistics or the design of it has never really been satisfied. What would the chances be of having a fan design competition to get these jet-shaped hats?
The jet-shaped hats, yes. I've seen so much on social media about jet-shaped hats, and I do read it because I actually came in and said, why can't we just make a jet-shaped hat? And it could just be a one-off, right? So that's certainly still on the cards.
Right.
I'd love to be able to launch something like that. Even for me, my original suggestion to the team was we could maybe do it on Anzac round, right? Like, because it fits, it makes sense.
Yep.
I don't know whether anyone's listening to me this year, but I'm certainly committed to trying to make something like that happen.
We've been having this discussion with many CEOs over many years. I did have a number which I unfortunately never took advantage of, but my idea was to first get a design and then something we can then go to an apparel supplier with. And nobody's been able to come up with a decent design. So my spitballing suggestion was, I have a signed Jets jersey from about 4 or 5 seasons ago. I will not say how it came into my possession, but I may be able to put that up as a prize for somebody designing a jet-shaped hat. So it might be, you've heard it here first, it might be something we'll throw up on socials to see if somebody can design something that's actually going to be worthwhile to get produced.
Correct.
Right, so Well, okay, so we've answered the question, would New Balance be able to produce it? I'm hearing yes. I'm hearing jet-shaped hats possibilities are higher than they have been in the past.
Well, put a dot, and let me make sure I call Joe at New Balance before he hears this.
Okay, so we'll take that question under advisement. Righto. So we've got a couple of questions from the forum. We'll get to obviously everybody's favourite stats man, David Keating. You might not be able to answer all of these, but some key players with contracts expiring at the end of the season. How is the club progressing with re-signing of these players?
So obviously a key priority is to retain, a core element of the team, and I like to leave some of those discussions to Mark and to obviously Nigel, who will provide me advice on who they want to retain. But at the moment, it's a work in progress.
Righto. He also asked, with this being the 25th anniversary since the club's formation in 2000, does the club have any planned events to recognise this milestone?
Very good question. We have our member appreciation round coming up 22nd and 24th of February. So probably a good shout out that it's something we should be looking at. So leave that one with me.
Okay. And something else you might not be aware of, Jetmaster on the forums also said next year is going to be the 50th year since KB United was formed and the first participation by any Newcastle-based sporting team in a national competition. He seems to think this is flying under the radar as well. Were the Jets aware of that milestone?
I think someone in our club would be aware of that milestone. It's probably Morris Bassetto would be aware of that milestone, but Tain Drinkwater now is also.
Awesome. Now, let me just scroll through these other ones. As a gold member, so Forever Red asks, as a gold member since 2008, just wondering why the the decision to separate the men's and women's memberships was taken. Why did we decide to charge extra for the women's games?
So it was really a decision just trying to amplify the investment in women's sport. So not unlike NIB directly investing in our women's front of jersey, it was more developing a product that can stand on its own 2 feet, because ultimately we know we have a number of members who want to just support women, and we support that and we encourage that, and we also know that there are some members who just want to support our men's, and ultimately we'd love everyone to support both teams, but we want to offer two different products, and it's at a price point that's appropriate for our women's team. But also, we need, if we ever want to change the dial in investment in women's sport, we actually have to value it as a product, and it's not just an add-on to a men's product. So that was the decision behind that.
No worries. A couple of questions from our Twitter friends. Mick G, with regards to recruitment, are we looking to sell good young players in order to invest in other good young players? And what are your thoughts on marquee signings? Is that something that the club has moved away from, or is it something that could be visited in the future if the right candidate becomes available?
I think it will always be revisited in the future if the right candidate becomes available. I mean, Zach Klopp is a recent signing. It's great, great addition to the club. That being said, as I've always said, we really want to promote homegrown heroes and people that are representative of our region, both our men and our women. I think we've had great transition rates with our women from our academy programs, and I think we're starting to see the fruits of that with our men or with our boys, and I think we'll see more of that as the DNA and as the coaching style and staff trickles down to our academy. We have some consistent standards, but ultimately, ideally, yes, we'd be able to, as I said before, kids waking up in Muswellbrook, playing for the local club and having aspirations to play internationally, that they stop at the Jets first, and we have an opportunity to provide them with that platform, because I don't think any of us would ever hold anyone back from going overseas. And I think it is also a revenue stream, right? Like for the club, it's something that you can't necessarily bank, but it is certainly upside for us. So where we've got young, good talent, we'll always look to provide opportunity to them, whether it's here or whether it's internationally.
Yeah, I think that was probably maybe the sideways way of asking what's our strategy around getting remuneration for those players that we're losing, because we've lost obviously Mirages to the coast, we've lost Thurgate, we've lost a bunch of players over the years but haven't got any reward for. Is that something the club's actively looking at? Like, if we're going to lose a player, we're damn sure going to get rewarded for it, because we've taken the development, and it gives us the ability to reinvest in the squad. That's obviously going to be the strategy.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay, well, that's a pretty quick answer to that question. Now, we did preempt this before we started recording, so it'll be interesting to see what answer we get for this. Can we confirm or deny rumours regarding Lockie Rose being hunted by another A-League club?
We can neither confirm nor deny.
That's a pretty, it can get frustrating for supporters to get behind a player only to lose them to another club, especially a local club, just when they start hitting their straps for us, and has happened time and time and time again when it comes to Jets land. So that's not necessarily looking for a response, just to make you aware of that can be some supporters' frustrations.
Oh, look, and I don't think, I'm not ignorant to that, but I also think that, what we're building here at the club is
bigger than one player.
Bigger than one player,
Yeah.
right? Like we've got Mark and we've got Stephen who are creating a culture and a way of being and playing that will separate us from our competitors. And it's really important that I continue and the club continues to back them in the way they want to coach and train. So we'll continue to do that. But also, absolutely note that, fans have got their favourites and they should have their favourites. But also we want their favourite to be the Newcastle Jets.
Do you have anything before I finish off a question? The last question?
Very quickly, I just want to get your input on 3 separate things. If you can maybe give me a rating between 0 and 10 as far as how you see the organisation, progressing. 0 being terrible, 10 perfect, and 5 maybe when you started the role or at the start of the season, that's where you were hoping to be. As far as the administration side of things, where do you see, like, you mentioned you didn't have a 100-day plan, but you would have obviously had some sort of set KPIs and some ideas on how you wanted things to grow or at least stabilise. So what mark would you give yourself?
I would say we are, there's always room for growth, so I'm going to say we're a 7. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say we're a 7 because you're right, I did have KPIs. But those KPIs were really focused around those 3 pillars. So the people first. So one, making sure our staff and our community felt engaged and communicated with. The second, which is team performance, which obviously exceptional at the moment. And then the third is that business performance and sustainability. We've grown our commercial portfolio. We've got new people to the club investing. We've got people coming back to the club, which I think is really important. And so there's always room for improvement. I think, if I take away venues and some of the costs that we should be able to negotiate down and we should be able to have more leverage on, that's probably what brings it down a little bit, if I'm honest. And there's still a lot of work to be done there.
Excellent. Second part of the question would be regarding the squad, but not the players on the pitch. So coaching, medical support, backroom, etc. How do you feel that's going? With 5 being what you were hoping for at this stage of the season.
I'm going to say that would be an 8 or a 9. Again, I think that we've got 2 great head coaches who are very clear in their convictions. They've been able to recruit their own high performance staff and their own staff around the team. And so when you give people the ability to do that, they really lean into it. And there's a lot of ownership and accountability. And there's a huge amount of connection between even both our men's and women's head coaches. So there's a lot of talk between Stephen and Mark. And so there's a lot of sharing of best practice. And so, I feel like the coaching staff are doing a tremendous job.
Fantastic. And last one would be just on-field performance for men's and women's team. These ratings might have been reversed 6 weeks ago. How would you feel the performance of both men's and women's is, compared to where you were aiming to be on the table?
I think with the women, it's been a bit of a slower burn, and so I think there's still a ways to go there. Obviously, they've played 4 games in 10 days, so there's been a lot of rotating of the roster, so that consistency might not have been there. But you're also seeing players now having to compete for their spots, so that's always a good position to be in. And so we need to continue to make sure we turn up every game and every player knows what their role is. And so with our women, I think we're on our way, and I probably rate them, again, probably a 6 or a 7. Oh, my kids will love that. So something along, around there. And I think with our men's, very much the opportunity that presented and they took as part of the Oz Cup, we can't take that away. And it's phenomenal. And I think, and I hope our fans are seeing that there is a new style of play. It's aggressive. It's exciting. I love watching, again, I love watching our women, but also our men are scoring a heap of goals. I think defensively they've started to again pick up, and so a lot of those areas are now really starting to be in lockstep, and they have an innate sense of where they're going to be and how they're going to play and what they're going to do. I would say our men are probably 7 or 8, but I think they're going really well, and I love watching both of the teams play.
3 points off the top of the table for the men. I don't think anyone would have necessarily predicted that before the start of the season. And very, very much time away. One final thing. I mean, it's almost like you guys, for the men anyway, have had a second life, a second opportunity with the way that we had the initial success in the Australia Cup. The start of the season didn't go to plan, obviously, which would have potentially kept some fans away. And now being on this run where the team's not just being recognised locally, but all through like the A-League media, we're getting box office chats and best team in 7 or 8 years, etc. Would you have a message just to send out to the fans, just in the lead up to obviously tonight's game and Friday night's game, for anyone that's sort of sitting on the fence as far as whether or not they should take the drive into the stadium?
My message is, get out to the game. Like it's very much now is the time to get around the team. We're playing consistently. We're turning up for our fans. We're playing an exciting brand of football that perhaps people haven't seen before. We're investing in our team, we're investing in the club, but we also need your support. And so you turning up actually turns the dial and makes a difference to the club, not only financially, but from a team perspective. Running out onto the pitch where you've got 10,000 fans screaming, it's just such a wonderful feeling. And even at number 2 for our women, if we can get 2,000 people there, it's just a beautiful stadium. It's phenomenal for the girls to be playing in such an area. So my message is get out, support the club in any way you can. We've got 3 and 6 game flexi memberships, we've got tickets, we've got merch, we've got different price points for people to be connected to clubs. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at the top end, but any way that you can support us, we'd really welcome it.
Well done for preempting my final question. You basically word for word without me even having to give it to you.
So message the club, tell them you want hats, turn up to the games, and submit your design.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's pretty much the takeaways from today.
Great.
I think that's a perfect place to end it. Tain, thank you very much for joining us on the Jetstream.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And hopefully we'll see you next time.
Yeah, great.